One Business Express, brought to you by EnterSwitch. Transaction solutions you can depend on.
Mike's up. Studio Live. Smooth 98.1. Love music, love life. It's time for Business Express 981. I'm Ayo Myra Say. Also in the studio with me is Rotus. Good morning, Rotus.
Good morning, Ayo. Good morning to everybody out there listening to our Love Music, Love Life station.
Fantastic. Now, if you'd like to join the conversation this morning, we'd love for you to send in your comments. You can do so through our WhatsApp platform 0809 444 You can also go onto YouTube, youtube.com/smooth981FM Lagos, and use the live chat option to send us a message. On Twitter, we are smooth981FM and use the hashtag Business Express 981. Also follow Rotus at Rot and Quote. So even
Yes,
beyond
indeed.
the time of the show, you can engage with him, ask questions, and he will bring it on the show.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Thank you. So interesting developments in the race for the next Director General of the World Trade Organization. We've got three candidates from Africa that are looking at the position. I believe Auntie Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, of course, from Nigeria. We've got a former trade minister from Kenya, Amina Mohammed, and I forget the name of the person from Egypt. I think it was somebody from Egypt. I think he's a man though. But very interesting. We also got candidates from what's it called? From South Korea. That's another lady. Someone from the United Kingdom, Liam Fox. Who else? We got someone from Mexico, as I like to, Jesus Kuri. But the thing is, the interesting thing is there's a lawyer from Kenya. I want to see what you folks think about his comments. His name is Patrick Lumumba, not to be confused with is it Patrice Lumumba, the other freedom fighter, not to be confused. He picked Dr. Okonjo-Iweala over his candidate from Kenya, Amina Mohammed, and here's what he had to say. He had an interview. He said that Africans have a way of competing against each other rather than complementing each other. Quote, our lack of coordination, different things that we should do jointly and with one voice, we don't. Recently, when we were competing for the non-permanent membership of the UN Security Council, Djibouti was competing with Kenya. Why? Right now, there's the WTO. Okonjo-Iweala is the candidate we should back, given her credentials. Now, a Kenyan candidate has emerged, an Egyptian candidate has emerged. We are going to be manipulated, and none of the Africans is going to get it. We've got to learn to do things properly as a continent. And when we do that, we'll be stronger, and ultimately our populations will benefit from it. So, I guess what he's saying is that Okonjo-Iweala is the best, well, as far as credentials are concerned. He places her over his candidate from Kenya. Would we do the same, right? If we would we put that, assuming Amina Mohammed from Kenya was more qualified than Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, would we turn around and say, well, no, Amina Mohammed should get it based on credentials? Because he's being very, very neutral here and being very non-partisan, and he's going strictly at the. And if you look at her, Dr. Ngozi's credentials, she's on the board of Twitter. She's on the board of, is it Gavid, which is this Gavo? There's something that Bill Gates is backing, a global vaccine board. So she's on that board. She's on the board of Standard Charter. So I mean, she's got what 30 plus years of developmental economic experience. She's a negotiator. She was the former finance minister and coordinating minister of the economy. So she's, I mean, just by and large, she is. I mean, again, it's hard for me to say it. I'm a Nigerian, so naturally I'm going to support her. But just based on credentials, she is the most qualified. But what he's doing here, he's just saying, look, stick to the credentials. Let us all come together as a consensus, and put forward one candidate. But the flip side of that argument is we get offended when people call Africa a country. We don't like it when it's a continent. It's got over 50 countries, right? What's our economic value for Africa? It's over a trillion, I believe, 1.3 trillion for the entire continent or so, 1.4. But if you want to put forward the individuality of Africa, then you might argue that African countries should be allowed to each put forward a candidate to compete for these positions. Yeah, I don't know how it's two ways to look at it, but so I feel that Kenya, Cameroon, whoever, every African country that feels that they've got a qualified candidate to be the next Director General of the World Trade Organization should be allowed to put forward their candidate. And I think the way the World Trade Organization picks their candidate is by consensus. It's not a vote thing or whatever. They just all come together and say, okay, look, who is this person that we're going to pick? And then they pick them.
That is because we're talking more and more of the continent exploring our strengths in unity.
Right.
So that's one of the reasons why we signed the African Free Trade Continental Trade Agreement.
Yes.
If we didn't want to work together, we wouldn't sign that.
Mm.
The reason is that if you look at other bodies like that, the European Union, we have other continents who have come together to work together so that they can achieve more.
Yes.
And I would see his point and the argument of that. Now, in terms of would Nigeria do the same? Going back to your first question.
Yes.
We're still on about federal character. So we would rather put someone who is from a particular place in a position who is not as qualified as someone else because the person is not from a particular tribe.
Right.
If we're still dealing with that, I doubt it very much if we would be willing to allow another person from another country based on qualifications. We haven't even gotten it right here. So we're not even, usually it's not meritorious. It's usually, where are you from? Okay, let's pick you. Oh, why do we have so many people from the South? Despite qualifications.
Right. So the tribal thing is global.
It's global. So in terms of if we're still dealing with on a tribal level, you think we'll do it continent-wide?
Right.
No way.
Right.
If the tables were turned, I doubt it very much if a Nigerian would say, you know what, let's support our Kenyan brother because we're all Africans. This is Africa. But I do think there's sense in what he said. If you look at the names you've mentioned, how many European candidates have been put forward?
Well, there's one from the UK.
From the UK.
Yes, and then there's one. So European, Asian, 3 Africans, South. Well, it's Mexico is Central America really, but Central South America. So there's 8 candidates, right? Yeah. So I think
3
right,
from Africa.
Right.
1 from. Let's look at what people who have done it understand politics, because what it does that it splits loyalties.
Right.
If you were thankfully it's not a voting job. If we're a voting job, we split votes. If we see it again and again happen in elections,
Right.
we see it come together. Let one person, it doesn't have to be all of us going to vie for the same position. Support the one person and put your money, your back, everything behind
into that person. Well, it's so well, okay, fine. I can accept what you're saying. I think folks out there, let me know what you think. But it's very interesting looking at how things go. I think if I were getting close, so next month is August, I believe, just like that. The decision is going to be made in September. I believe it's September 7th. And look, the person who gets this job is in for it. If you think about the issues with, as if Trump is reelected, which I'm sorry to say this, I should maintain neutrality on radio, but I do not like Donald Trump. I think he's been a disaster for the U.S. economy. I think he is he's a bully and so on and so forth. But these are my opinions, right? And I think the man inherited a good economy from Obama. Everything he's bragging about, economies move in cycles. There's no way what he has achieved with unemployment and so on in the US, he did on his own. It's what Obama brought America from a depression and he started creating jobs and he took over from there. But anyway, the reason why I bring up Trump doesn't like the WTO. He prefers bilateral agreements rather than multilateral agreements. He says he's been hostile to the WTO. He thinks that it is an organization, a multilateral organization that shouldn't exist. His is it Robert Lighthizer? He's head of trade or trade representative for the U.S. So whoever gets this job, if it's Okonjo-Iweala or whoever, you are going to be facing a hostile United States. You're going to be facing the European Union, Asia. It's a very tough job. So whoever gets it, good luck to you. But so yeah, I want to make sure the person is a good negotiator.
Yinka says, Rotus, a certain Nigerian head of state once backed another country's candidate over a Nigerian. So why can't we do the same today? However, the day Africa unites, there will be problem in the West. So that day will never come. So you see, we should have that because we're such a strong force when we come together.
Right.
And then this next comment, while one cannot determine the role of a consensus at the African level, there was never a time one expected that Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala would seek the WTO position without a challenge. The emergence of other contenders from Africa is a welcome development. It's a show of diversity of talent on the continent. Professor Lumumba is free to support NOI, but let's not shoot other contenders.
Thank you. Who sent that message? Did you add your name? You see, and that is the other argument that, thank you. I mean, that is the, again, Jonah, yeah. So I really like that argument. That is the alternative to this, where I think that Africa should be celebrated for its diversity. So yes, she should get a challenge from Kenya. She should get a challenge again. I'm talking to both sides of my mouth. Where I believe that Mulumba has a point where we should all support one person. But are there not other qualified Africans that can also compete for the job? And does it not show that Africa has such a diverse set of candidates that can lead the World Trade Organization?
There are many qualified candidates in Europe and Asia. Yet they decide. I'm sure there's some problem.
Actually, European Union, they didn't pick a candidate because they wanted to avoid a dispute with the United States. So but that's politics now.
So what is this?
Well, I don't know.
It's politics. Yami says, "Good morning, Mr. Patrick is so on point. I had this conversation with my partner yesterday. Why 3 Africans?"
Okay.
Henry Manuel says, "For the good of global trade, I hope that guy from Mexico gets the job. He's more suited for the job than all the candidates. And Ngozi's realm is finance, not trade."
Yeah, that's a good point. Good point, Henry. Real quick, look at the actual what I even wanted to discuss. The NPC communique that came out on Monday from the meeting. The CBN talked about the disbursements that have been made so far as COVID-19 aid is concerned. So we're almost at 300 billion naira. Of course, let me list out the facilities here. 50 billion naira household SME facility, of which 49.1 billion to 92,000 beneficiaries has been made. Every time the CBN tweets at CBN send bank CNBNK, people are always under in their replies on Twitter. How far are the loans? How far is the disbursements? I haven't got my own. So in 2000 beneficiaries, the money is almost gone. There's a 100 billion healthcare facility, of which 93 billion has been disbursed to the healthcare sector, ICUs, beds, hospitals, and so on. And then there's 152 billion that has been disbursed to the manufacturing sector that has financed 61 projects. 152 billion to just 61 projects. So while the CBN has to be commended for the money that's been pushed out, it looks like we need more. And that's where the rubber meets the road, as the saying goes, with regards to COVID-19 disbursement. So, again, they just put all this. They talked about growth in credit, 5.16% growth in June 2020, 7.47% growth in May. Total gross credit to the economy, 15.5 trillion, at the end of May, grew to 18.9 trillion at the end of June. And the sectors that have been beneficiaries: manufacturing, consumer credit, general commerce, ICT, and agri. So, again, we push on. I think GDP figures for Q2 should be out next week. Everybody prepare for an ugly number. Who came out? US, they said US GDP contracted by 32%. That was just a random figure that was thrown out by some center over in the States. But that's the States. Nigeria's own, let's just prepare for an ugly contraction, but we'll see what the number is by next week or 2 weeks from now.
All right. Thank you very much, Rotus. A few comments before we round off. Isiaka from Ibutemeta says, "Good morning, folks. I perfectly agree with the Kenyan guy. If Africa can jointly support a candidate, it will facilitate the African Continental Free Trade Agreement."
Again, these are Nigerians saying this because he's backing a Nigerian. So it's easy to say I support him. If it was flipped around, would we do it? So again, good point. Your point is well noted.
To be fair,
yeah.
When the other person, someone that commented about the Mexico guy, my heart was like, my eyes are like, how dare you? So I can understand. Inka says this is a continent where our francophone keeps screwing up, our efforts against Boko Haram. The continent agreed against a full-blown Western army base, only for some to turn around to house a drone base for the army who shall not been named. So
I
saying
get
about
it.
unity. And finally,
unity.
Ogban says, hey guys, on the WTO nomination, there should be competition within Africa, and then we should jointly support the one candidate
That gets
which emerges as the winner.
Mm.
That should be Africa's approach to international matters. Thank you.
All right.
All right, that's all. Thank you all very much.
Thank you all for your
contributing.
messages. Yes.
And Rotus will be back tomorrow morning at 6:30. This is Smooth 98.1. We have a good lineup of songs for you in the next few minutes, and then at 7:30 we will be bringing you freshly pressed 981. Good morning.
Express. Brought to
Thank
you
you.
Okay,
by
picture time.
N300bn.
Okay.
Oh, first off, that's
Transaction solutions you can depend on. With critical focus on the Nigerian economy, we see the bigger picture.
oh, okay. There was actually hold on.
Express on Smooth
Kenya spoke. There was a comment.